Today, we're going to talk a little bit about MLA formatting. And for those of you who don't know at all, MLA formatting is Modern Language Association. And formatting just means how is your paper, your essay, supposed to look? And what are the ways that you're using documentation? So you're giving credit to the people whose ideas you're using. So, why do we need to talk about this? Well, okay, first off, we're going to build our knowledge of it over the first three assignments. So, you don't need to learn everything today, just the basics. But why do we need to have MLA formatting whenever you turn in a paper? Why can't you just write it the way you write it as long as you have everything that's required and turn it in? Well, there are a couple of reasons why we use MLA formatting. Every academic discipline has a different way, a different kind of way that they would like their papers to be presented. So, in the English department and in some of the humanities, we use this thing called MLA formatting. In other humanities, you might use Chicago, like in history, for example. If you're in the sciences and you're turning in papers, you probably are going to use APA. So, why are we using MLA? If you're going to be in a different discipline? Well, there are a couple of reasons. First is it's a pretty simple scheme, and it's pretty easy to get your head around most of it. Secondly, it's good to practice learning different formats and rules for how your communication should look like because we have rules and formats for basically all the communication that we have. There are things that you would do in a text message that you would never do other places. Similarly, there are things that you would do other places that you would never do in a text message. So, what if you use really precise formatting in a text message? Maybe that sends the wrong kind of tone to your friend if you're using a bunch of periods and commas and semicolons. Maybe they start thinking that you're mad at them, right? So, we're learning all these codes, all these formats for all of our communication. If you work in a law office, you're going to have a certain kind of way that you must communicate with formatting. If you work in a restaurant and you have to write down the orders in a specific way so that the kitchen knows what to do with it, those are the whys of learning formatting. Whether it's MLA or anything, it gives us practice for it. So today we're just going to focus on what MLA format looks like, and it involves these major issues. So before we do that, I'm just going to show you one of my own. So while you can't see the header because it's up here, the header is going to, because this is a Google document, the header is going to be right justified, and we'll talk about that. The rest of it basically does conform to what's required for an MLA paper. You have this heading here, you have your title here, and then you have the remainder of your paper. At the very, very end, you may have some section titles which can look a little bit different. At the very end, you have what's called the Works Cited paper page, and that gives you information about the different things that you talked about in your paper and the sources that you used. So let's move on from here. The basics. If you take a look, the first thing is you're going to have your last name at the very top right along with the page number, and that goes for every single page of the paper, obviously. Then you're going to have this standard heading. You're going to type your name, you're going to type your instructor's name, you're going to type the course name, and you're going to type the date that you turned it in, and that is at the beginning of every MLA paper. Next come your title, and it needs to be right in the middle of this paper, so it's middle aligned. And you want to make sure that it's all title or all capitalized except for these little words like this. Then from there, you're just going to make sure that you begin with an indentation and then you double space the rest of the paper. And those are the basics. Just to make sure you know, there's no bold, there's nothing that's underlined, and no extra space in between any of these things. So when you click enter, that's all you need to do. You do not need to create a separate enter from between the title and the beginning. If you add excess space, oftentimes your instructors will take off points. They might think that you're trying to take up space rather than writing as much. So what about the font? Mainly, people are going to ask for Times New Roman, but you can use some of the other ones that are inoffensive and perhaps a little bit professional, such as Arial. Anyone love a Garamond? I pretty much love a Garamond. But you definitely want to talk to your instructor and make sure that you don't want to violate any kind of norms that they have around fonts. Stick with Times New Roman if you want to just be safe. Make sure that it's a 12-point font and make sure that it's black. And if you're so bored writing in that font while you're doing the paper, write it in a totally different font and in a crazy fun color and then change it right before you turn it in. So, just to preview, this essay, you're responsible for the basics. And the next essay, you're going to have to add a works cited page because you will be citing a source. You're going to be using interviews. And whenever you use the words of anyone else other than yourself, you have to give them credit. And that comes like almost in the end credits of a movie or of a TV show. You have to put the end credits in your works cited page. Then in essay 3, you're going to be responsible for a works cited page, for the basics, but also for this thing about in-text citations. In your paper, whenever you write something that somebody else thought or said, you need to create a place in that paper to give them acknowledgement. So you don't just wait till the end credits, you put it in the paper as well. So get started on your basics of formatting for your essay 1.